This week, I tested some of the most absurd 1-star killer build reviews from places like Reddit, Steam, and the behavior forums. I really wanted to see if these builds were deserving of being called some of the worst in the game. If a 5-star killer build was a full 3-star Michelin star feast, then a 1-star killer build would be like drinking that milk at your grandma's place that expired back in 2005. I tested 5 different 1-star killer builds to give my own expert opinion after experiencing them each for myself, because maybe people are wrong, and now others won't give these builds a chance to shine. The first review comes from Baisu, who rated the Anti-Heal Plague build with a 1 out of 5 stars. Anti-Heal Plague is terrible. The build is comprised of Nurse's Calling, Choleraphobia, Sloppy Butcher, Distressing, and add-ons being Prayer Tablet and Severed Toe. Never playing this again. The survivors are always broken for my power when they touch gens, and when they wanted to heal, they would go to a pool and cleanse there instantly. This build directly works against her entire power, 1 out of 5 stars. So I had to test this, so I got this exact build ready and started a match. I soon found 3 survivors on the balloon gen. I couldn't infect the survivors normally because of my add-on, so I was forced to M1 them all. Someone cleansed, so I picked it up and downed another with my power. The survivors were healing each other, so I was at least getting some value from my perks. I ended up chasing this Laura for a good while until finally downing her. Everyone was cleansing with 1 gen remaining. However, they cleansed furthest away from the active gens all the time. I caught out this Nancy and got a hit with my power, but because I couldn't infect her, she fully healed back with adrenaline. She made a break forward to a gate that was already fully prepped by her teammate, and I ended the match without a single kill. They had their weakest link using a gen rush build, while the other 3 used meta chase perks and insta heals. So I feel like I was kinda cooked from the get-go this match. This match lasted a total of 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and I only got a few hits that entire match. This build was rough. The main drawback of this build would have to be the tablet add-on that doesn't allow you to infect survivors directly. If you didn't have this add-on, this build would play pretty much like no add-on Plague, which inherently isn't too bad considering she's got some strong add-ons and a good power for snowballing. The only way I see this build working is if you either slug everyone or hold a 3 gen if possible. These survivors made little to no mistakes and took advantage of the fact that I couldn't infect them when they were all grouped up. The anti-heal perks got little to no usage, sneaking up on survivors and getting free hits while I had a massive tear radius from distressing was impossible. If a survivor were to get injured from my M1 attack, they could infect themselves on purpose, then fully cleanse both the broken and the injure I gave them earlier. The build works directly against her kit and actually makes her kit worse with the troll add-ons. However, Plague is a decently strong killer by herself anyways, so while Baisu gave this build a 1 out of 5 stars, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5 stars. The next review comes from Heg B76 with a 1 star for the Bamboozle Nurse build, and they say, Bamboozle Nurse is funny but still terrible. You bring Brutal, Enduring, Spirit Fury, and Bamboozle. You also bring the Matchbox add-on that increases your movement speed to 4.4 ms the entire game. The general premise is that you can't use your blink and have to play like a basic M1 killer. As backwards and funny as this is in-game, it sacrifices the best ability in the entire game for perks that you wouldn't even need in the first place if you just used your power. 5 out of 5 for memes, 1 out of 5 stars for how good it is. So I started up a new match as the nurse and was taken to Dead Dog Saloon. I activated my power once, then I began to walk around and play like a basic M1 killer, getting my first down pretty easily. I wanted the full Bamboozle Nurse experience, so I never used my blink after the first one. One of the survivors had head-on, so I assumed that she was the one who brought the map. Because I was running Enduring, I could get some super easy downs like this. I got this 100% deserved hit on Nia vaulting this window, and got the down shortly afterwards. This match was already going a lot better than the Plague match before. Bamboozle even on a 4.4 killer is still an S tier perk, so you can get easy downs like this one on the UE. Several downs and hooks later, and this match seemed to be actually winnable. I instantly broke pallets with my Spirit Fury and was getting full value from every perk in this build. They completed all the gens and the survivors I was chasing adrenalined away, but I managed to down another survivor, killing her. I also downed and hooked the Yui. I got a free hit on the Sable going for the save, but her speed up meant I couldn't get the double hit. Her movement looked faster after this vault, so I thought she had used Lithe, but I was mistaken. I downed the Sable and chased the Yui, but the buffed movement speed from unhooks made it impossible to walk her down. The Nia saved the Sable, and I got some teabags for my time, ending the match sadly. This match was longer, at a total of 7 minutes 30 seconds. This build was actually not bad. I mean, compared to just base kit nurse it was bad, but compared to all the other killers it wasn't terrible. I was walking around at hunter speed with full chase perks, so it could have been better, I couldn't complain. If I had just used the singular blink you have because of the add-on on top of the chase perks, I 100% could have won that match. I just wanted to experience the truly organic version of Bamboozle Nurse. Because people are used to playing against Nurse in such a different way than other killers, when a Nurse starts playing the game like a trapper, it seems to fry survivors' brains a little bit, resulting in more mistakes. I love chase perks, and this build is very funny and not terrible, so I'm going to be giving a 3 out of 5 stars. 1 out of 5 stars seems a little mean. This next review comes from Rising, with a 1 out of 5 rating for the McDonald's Myers build, and they say, since my beloved Burger King Myers was shot in the back of the head by behavior, I've been looking for a Myers build that could replace it. This build I've discovered really leans into the old pride of running things on Myers that actively work against you and or are useless. This build is Scratched Mirror Myers with Tombstone. You bring Dying Light, Insidious, Starstruck, and Trail of Torment. In game, you can't hit tier 3 with the mirror. Dying Light gives the obsession a free 33 increase in speed to heals and unhooking, as you're unlikely to hook anyone with your decreased lunge and slower movement speed for the entire match. Plus, no terror radius means you can't use Starstruck, and Insidious and Trail of Torment are wasted. Tombstone does nothing the entire match since you can't tier up past tier 1 because of Scratched Mirror. I think I finally landed on the spiritual successor of Burger King Myers, so I'm glad to give a Myers build a 1 out of 5 stars just like the old days. I had only heard great things about the late Burger King Myers, so I was curious to see how its 2024 counterpart held up. The mirror add-on proved useful almost immediately at least, allowing me to find a survivor. Because I don't have a killer lunge with this build, even small loops can be a real Herculean effort to beat. The Scratch Mirror allowed me to get another down. They got the down survivor up before I could hook her, so I went for the Ada instead. You are slower than your average killer, so it took me a while to get the down with her dropping pallets and W keying. I got into a stare contest with this Renato, and because I don't have a lunge with this build, I couldn't get anything sadly. Serena hit me with the dead hard into the last gen popping into Shack pallet drop, and I was still having a hard time getting the down. This build really makes you appreciate a killer's lunge, because without it, survivors make pretty much anything on time. I finally downed the Zarina and played a little game of Camp the Hook. Thus ensued a flurry of downs and hooks and injures as they tried their best to save everyone. They had opened the gates, so they had no time to reset, resulting in 2 survivors dying. This match was a total of 4 minutes 58 seconds from start to all gens finished, thus making it the fastest of all the matches so far, which makes sense considering McDonald's is known for their fast service. This build was honestly miserable to play. You can't tier up past tier 1, you have no lunge, and you're slightly faster than the survivor's base speed. You usually run the add-on that gives you a larger lunge along with the Scratch Mirror, but I had to run a useless Tombstone because that's what they used to do back in the good old days when it would slow you down even more. So at least I didn't have to deal with being even slower than I was now. You get no value from any of the perks because you're already undetectable the entire match because of your add-ons. Starstruck doesn't work because you have no terror radius, and Dying Light only helped the survivors because of how slow it is to down a survivor with this build. The only useful thing was the wall hacks and undetectable, but due to indoor maps being rather rare, and you still have 0 slowdown or lunge, it doesn't mean much. This build sucks. McDonald's sucks, 1 out of 5 stars for me. I agree with Rising in saying that this build is one of the worst builds in DBD. For this 4th review, we got a review from Inori who gives the padded trapper build a 1 out of 5 stars. They say, I got this build from a randomizer and I'm glad I did. This was the worst killer build I've ever seen. You bring the 4 perks Territorial, Predator, Bloodhound, and Distressing along with the padded Jaws Trapper add-on. The add-on pretty much made my traps useless, as each time someone landed in one, it wouldn't injure the survivors at all. My 4 perks have to be some of the worst in the entire game. Territorial didn't activate once the entire match, and perks like Predator actually made properly tracking survivors harder than normal. I can only assume the devs of that randomizer website were trolling me with this one-of-a-kind, terrible build on an already terrible killer. 1 out of 5 stars. I added the Trapper Sack add-on as well, just so I wouldn't have to pick up a bunch of traps that wouldn't do much anyways. I downed one of the Renatos after he got stuck on a chest. Thank you, Mr. Chest, for that. I hate the perk Predator. It makes tracking legitimately way harder to do. I faked my trap and managed to down the Kate because of it. After a while, I managed to down the second Renato and began chasing the Nancy. They finished the last gen shortly after I downed and hooked the Nancy and got this classic from Renato. I managed to down Nancy, but she was saved because of a background player flashbang. Thankfully, she did this. I trapped the hook 30 million times in hopes of it doing something, which it didn't. They got the unhook and all of them BM'd and escaped. The total match time for this game was 5 minutes 31 seconds. This build made the worst killer in the game somehow feel even worse. I didn't even think you can make Trapper feel even more buns to play, but Inori did the impossible, it seems. Usually for Trapper, you want at least a little bit of gen slowdown to properly set up your traps, something like Deadlock or Corrupt, but this build pretty much has no perks at all, and much like the review, I didn't even get anything out of these perks, as there are the 4 worst in the entire game. The padded traps add-on is terrible because your traps don't injure a survivor, so even if you manage to trap a survivor mid-chase, it just results in a free hit if they're healthy, not a down. I'm gonna have to give this build a 1 out of 5 stars. Lastly, we've got a review from Rich. This build was recommended to me recently by a friend, and I have to say it's the most stupid build and playstyle I've ever seen. You play Wraith with the add-on that keeps your terror radius well cloaked. You bring Monster Shrine, Devour Hope, and Insidious, and face camp the survivor on Hook. I didn't get any value from my Devour Hope or Monster Shrine since I was close to Hook, and I was forced to stand still for Insidious to keep me undetectable because I had the add-on that kept my terror radius well cloaked. All the survivors escaped and I got trash talked in the endgame for face camping. 1 out of 5 star experience. For this build, I added Stabiffle, since they only listed 3 perks and I thought it fit with the whole face camp plan. As I didn't have undetectable for my terror radius, I couldn't snag a free hit right away from the start, sadly. They got my Devour Totem and I managed to down and hook the Sable. Then I face camped until a Meg came for the save. Meg went down, and I cloaked up close by and stood still so that my Insidious would come into effect. Thankfully, this survivor squad wasn't on third-party comms, so the Kate came for the save instead of doing gens, which allowed me to injure and then down her. I set up my phase camping station nearby, getting 0 value from my monster's shrine because I was way too close to the hook. Laura came for the save, so I stopped her while Kate decided that this game wasn't for her and committed self-game over. They were pumping up the gens as per usual, but the only other gen with progress was beside the hook survivor, so I waited. Laura hit second stage and Meg went for the save, but because of Stabiffle, she couldn't get there in time, resulting in Laura dying. Sable finished the last gen as I carried Meg into the basement, and the Sable left her to die. This match was a total of 6 minutes and 46 seconds, making it one of the longer matches. Despite the fact that 2 of your perks are completely useless with this build and playstyle, I found it kind of funny and creative strategy-wise. Survivors are used to you having a terror radius while cloaked with this add-on, so I think you're completely not there when you're using Insidious while invisible. Maybe it's just me missing the matches where you could play Facecamp Bubba in peace, but I actually enjoyed this match. Having a rage quit after getting absolutely obliterated and gen rushed the 4 other matches was honestly the icing on the cake. It's still a terrible build, but I still enjoyed playing it, and I thought the idea behind it was pretty funny and unique too, utilizing some of the worst perks and add-ons together. 5 out of 5 stars for me. And that was the final 1-star killer build. This was a lot of fun to test out, and it makes you appreciate playing the game normally afterwards, when your builds aren't actively trying to make you lose on purpose. A lot of these reviews stated that the build was the worst killer build in DVD, which I thought was a little exaggerated for a few of them. A couple definitely deserve those 1 stars though. If you enjoyed the video and would like to see more content like this, maybe a survivor version, please comment McDonald's Myers so that I know you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.